This is Tech Addicts. This week we're talking about Motorola Edge 30 Ultra, some ham radios, a new Razer soundbar, new stuff from Samsung, the Oppo Find N2 Flip, and we have a special guest. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Gareth Miles, and I have Mr. Ted Salmon sitting slightly over to my left in Wales. And then we also have slightly left of him again in the east of England, Mr. Ricky West. How are you, Ricky?
Hello.
Ted?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Thank you. Nice to have a guest on. First time for me.
Yeah, I think the last guest we actually had was Ricky West.
Ah.
Yeah, I believe it was back in 2019.
It would have, yeah, because I was doing Talk Sport at the time and I announced it, and there must be a footballer called Ricky West, because they got excited and thought it was you.
Okay.
Maybe there isn't, I don't know. Maybe they were just taking the piss out of me, which wouldn't be unlike them. So, how are you guys? Ready for another exciting whirlwind of a tech show?
Yes. Thrilling. It's going to be thrilling.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Excellent. So, Ricky, what have you been up to for the last 4 years? Start at the start, don't skip bits, and...
Okay. So, in a nutshell, I went into lockdown as we did. YouTube was very successful throughout lockdown because everyone was sat at home watching YouTube videos, so that was fantastic. Then I met my wonderful wife-to-be, Lauren, on Tinder, which was great fun as a visually impaired person. And moved in together in Milton Keynes, and still continuing my work with Ricky's Tech Talk, but also still continuing working as well with my day job, and just still looking at devices and making sure that they're accessible and trying to highlight as much accessibility around devices as possible. As some of you may remember, I'm visually impaired, so I'm registered blind, but I do have some usable sight. So I like to prod and poke devices and make sure that they are accessible for at least most people with different abilities in life.
Brilliant. And I remember you would be very thoroughly investigating all of the likes of accessibility options on Android phones and Apple phones and things like that. So what do you use? What's your sort of your daily driver?
So I always try to run two devices at the same time. So I've always been in the Mac area and Apple, but I also like to have Android because then people do have questions. So currently at the moment is an iPhone 13 Pro Max because of the larger display, and I'm just working on, here's a little sneak peek for anyone listening to this, the most accessible device of 2022 for me is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. And some people may think, ooh, why is that? But I will have a video about that. But because of the larger display, it is like a tablet format in a small device that can go in your pocket. However, I'm still worried carrying around a foldable with me. I've seen quite a few foldables, and I think it's the way forward. However, I think we just need to get around that worry of having a foldable in your pocket. I think there's always that little worry. But for me, I got to see a lot of devices last year, but Samsung seemed to just offer so much more. You get your standard level from Google, because Google own a lot of the rights to the accessibility settings, and then Samsung put on their own sort of top bit with their One UI system. So yeah, for me, sneak peek video coming up is the Samsung Z Fold 4.
Oh, excellent.
For the most accessible device.
Brilliant. Just a bit of a hint. Who's the worst? Who's have you come across that just isn't worth it?
So some people, I've challenged this, and because Google own the rights to the accessibility settings, obviously with Huawei, when they lost the Google services, they had to try and come up with their own, and they struggled with that, trying to come up with their own settings, or they just left them out. Some devices just seem to forget and just don't put them in. And it's really frustrating. Most devices will have magnification and zoom and a voiceover of some sort. However, devices just then seem to add more. But one of the biggest ones at the moment is Sony. The Xperia devices just really seem to struggle with the level accessibility settings.
Right, okay. Well, that's quite interesting. Hadn't thought about that aspect from Huawei, that, they lose the Google imprint and then they'll lose accessibility as well.
Yeah, because obviously with Honor being a separate entity, they kept theirs, and Honor still worked on other settings. But because Google owned the right, it's an open source code, but because it's Google's code, it was lost.
Wow. Ted, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not really quite sure what the kind of features are that you're looking for. Before we recorded, you mentioned that one of the first items was my Motorola Edge 30 Ultra review, which I was just going to highlight with its kind of newish big pixel sensor for photography on the 200 megapixel. But you said you were looking forward to looking at that because it was so bad at accessibility.
Yeah, so some of the Motorola devices in the past, again, have just had some very basic level of settings, and they don't seem to add in sort of hearing aid support. I know they missed out hearing aid support on one of their devices in the past, and again, I flagged this up because I'm in touch with PR agencies, and I sort of let them know, and it's those little settings that can really be frustrating for people as well, and the accessibility settings very rarely get updated. Once they're on a device, they very rarely get updated, but some do, adding new features or obviously utilising different apps that are available. But Motorola in the past, for me, didn't seem... I know on their folding device... Was it their folding device?
The Razer.
It didn't seem to have all the settings or didn't work correctly. The zoom was a bit of an issue.
Okay.
On that device when I took a look at that device a long time back.
Okay, and where does Apple fit in for you?
So Apple are up there, but you'll notice anyone that's visually impaired for some reason always tend to go to Apple, and it seems like Apple doesn't really highlight this. They have started to with their accessibility sections online, and they do have a good range of settings. However, there's so many different sub-layers that it can be really quite confusing. Whereas Samsung make it plain, easy, they set it out in sections. I noticed Apple did in iOS 15, I think, previous year. They put it into visual, hearing, dexterity and interaction, and it's easier then to know which settings you go into. But for me, Samsung just seem to have so many options that really do help. The Pixel's really good as well. I've got the Pixel 7 Pro, and that's very good as well because, as you know, there's pure Androids, but they still don't have what Samsung put on top because of their One UI system.
Yeah, it's very impressive, and it's a compelling argument. I did my Edge 30 Ultra review this week, and I'll put a link in the show notes to that, a written review. And oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. Go away.
I've not changed that yet.
And I'll put my written review into the show notes, as I was saying. It's a really interesting device, laying aside any accessibility for a moment. And I'm really, really impressed with it in lots and lots of ways. Apart from the 200 megapixel sensor, which apparently is really good and big and fast and has all the bells and whistles, although Steve Litchfield on PSC doesn't rate it as highly as the real leaders in his world at the moment, being stuck into Apple as well. Of course, the 14 Pro Max. But to me, the results of the 200 megapixel sensor are fabulous, especially if you don't let it crop down to pixel binning and end up with 12 megapixel shots. It's just amazing to zoom in and look at what they're doing. Not that most people will zoom in. Most people take photographs for social media, so it doesn't really matter. But it's interesting to see what they're doing. And the phone itself is just amazing. I really like what Motorola do with with Android. I think it's clean, but the things that they add on top are intelligent, smart, and good things, and not bloated. And I mean, even Samsung, I think, to some degree, bloats it away with stuff that you just don't need and doubling up with apps, and it's just really tedious. The speakers are really good as well, so I love my speakers on phones, as you might know, and I really, really like it. 750 quid, so it's not up there with the the ultras of Samsung and so forth, but I will be doing a kind of the forthcoming for me will be a written review on a comparison between this and the S21 Ultra, which I happen to have at the moment. So yeah, it's a good phone.
Yeah, it certainly looks a good phone, and your review is very, very thorough. Very thorough.
Thank you.
Do you have much time with Motorola's there, Ricky?
I was just looking through the review. I haven't. It's strange with PR companies, as people know. It changes and they change, and you get dropped off the list, and so you do have to go and sort of knock on doors. But I will try and reach out, because this year I'm starting to sort of reach out to different manufacturers and sort of talk to them and just really highlight the accessibility, because people do want to talk about it. But one thing I did look here is, how did you find it having only a 1080p sort of display?
Doesn't bother me at all.
No, you didn't.
I draw the line at 720 these days, and I can tell tell the difference, but I honestly cannot tell the difference between 1080 and 1440. My Samsung has got 1440, and I hold them next to each other, and they just look the same to me. The same is true, Ricky, of refresh rates. I want to be able to see. I really want to be able to see the difference, but I have all my phones on 60 because I honestly can't see it, and I'd rather save the battery.
I completely agree with you, and the only time that I can ever see it is if I scroll on Twitter very, very quick. As long as I've got a good internet connection and it can load the feed just as quick, that's the only time that I can see it. So again, for me, it's really good if, say for instance, I think with Apple's latest device, they brought it right down, haven't they, because of the always on display and stuff like that. It's beneficial for battery like that. Yeah. But one thing I saw with this device that looked really interesting, is it 22 minutes from 0 to 100?
That was my...
That's incredible.
I did a test on the... Of course, you've got to use the cable and the charger that comes with it to get those speeds. But it's still not far off with a generic one. I've got a 100-watt GAN charger here and a generic cable, and it's not far off that. But yeah, the 125-watt charging is staggering to watch happen.
Yeah. I've got 65 watt with some of the devices I've got here, and even that's impressive. You can see it trickling up, but no, that's beyond next level, I think.
Very good indeed.
It's amazing what's happening with these battery technologies and things like that, and how good devices are getting these days, but they still have their little flaws in there, and it's nice that Ricky's highlighted some of them. I wanted to quickly ask, because it popped into the back of my head there, when it comes to desktops as well, would you say that Windows or Microsoft have really made a big step forward for accessibility on the desktop over Apple?
Yes, yeah. Again, Windows seem to highlight it a little bit better to customers. I've been into the Microsoft store in London. I was there for its opening. I can't remember how many years ago now that was. That was quite a long time. And they had a dedicated accessibility desk that had different heights, different available options there. They had a hearing loop, and they were willing to just show every accessibility feature. And with Windows at the beginning side of the setup phase, it sort of automatically starts to talk to you. Apple only brought that in previous generation of the Mac OS. So Windows seemed to be really good, and a lot of the assistive technology tools that you'll get, such as like JAWS, Supernova, Zoom Text, they mainly work with Windows software. You very don't see that with Mac at all. So Mac have their own version. They've got the voiceover, they've got magnification, which I use, they've got options to change the colour. You even have the option to sort of narrate and tell it to what section. It breaks the screen up into different sections, which is great. And again, it's all on Apple's website, but I don't feel like they shout about it enough.
Right, okay. Well, maybe they don't really feel they need to or should. It just be a normal feature that's in there that people should take as granted. as
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you use a Mac as your daily driver. You're on a Mac right now.
Yeah. So I've got the M1. Is it the Max? I think it's the M1 Max. So they've just released a new one, the M2 series, and I can use that for 4K video editing. It's fast, it's reliable, and it's great. I really enjoy it. I doubt if I'll update to the latest version. It looks like it's a little bit faster, as Apple says, but it doesn't look like it's necessary to update.
Oh, terrific. Well, I think Ted had a Mac for a while, but I think he threw it out the window or something.
I had an iMac, and I would have thought that would be pertinent to someone with a sight impairment to have the biggest screen you possibly can. Is that something? Do you plug it into something?
Yeah, so I was really hoping when Apple released their 24-inch version that they were going to re-release and update the 27-inch version, which I think is going to come this year. I think you'll see that with the latest processor this year. But for myself, I will only work with either a 27 or 32-inch monitor. Right. I've been really lucky. Philips and AOC I work with quite a lot, and I get to see sort of a lot of their new monitors. So I currently at the moment, and my partner will be so grateful because I've got some time, I've actually got 4 monitors. So on my desk, I only have one at the moment, but I have been using 2 or 3 to show in the video. So yeah, it connects into a monitor.
Very good.
I did look at the Apple Studio sort of displays. They're very expensive, and I really worry with one of them that the cable's connected, and I know what I'm like, that I'll just yank it off the desk and I'll just sit and cry because that's a lot of money that's just been destroyed.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I did.
And you feel like a world power commanding person. Sorry, Ted.
I did like the iMac, I must admit, but I just could not get on after a lifetime of growing up through the whole of the kind of era with Windows and Microsoft. I just could not make the switch to it. I couldn't understand how Mac did things and how Apple did things, and I just got really, really confused and I just thought it was all complicated the way they did things. And yeah, I mean, if I'd grown up with it, I would have known, and I would have thought the opposite, no doubt. But for me, I was so happy in Windows.
Yeah, yeah. The better the devil you know, I suppose they might say. Okay, well, we'll move on to some of the feedback that we've received. Ted, what's Matt Jones been chiming about?
He's been talking about ham radio, and he's got this Baofeng UV5R, a cheap Chinese 2M70CM FM. I don't know anything about this, obviously. FM transceiver. It's not a particularly good one. Actually, it's pretty poor in the grand scale of radios, but it's not absolute garbage, and it does work as it's designed to. The thing that makes it iconic is the price, however, where a radio amateur might have paid £300 to £1,000 for an equivalent product from a reputable manufacturer. I paid £7 for this one from China. £7. Wow. And they have identified a link in the UK without importing it for £26 in the UK, which is still really cheap. What's astonishing is when you consider this includes the radio, the antenna, a battery, 2 headsets, cradle, dock, charger, case, the whole lot. The reason these are popular with lots of folk is that they can be easily programmed, says Matt, to use the license-free PMR446 frequencies, although technically it's not legal to do so. So they are popular with off-roaders, paintballers, security companies, etc. It's a hell of a lot of tech for £7, he says, and even works as a rechargeable torch. It's worth having just for a torch for £7. Anyway, there's a long thread on it in the MeWe group where Matt talks to some other people about memories of radio ham stuff. We should have had this in Hark Back, really, shouldn't we? But thanks, Matt. That's really interesting. I never played with ham radio much in my past, but I don't know. Did you, Gareth?
Not really, no. I had a friend who was into it and I was quite intrigued. Because I'd go around to his house and he'd just be sitting there talking to what I imagined to was truckers, essentially, driving around the country, and they all had their handles, like in Smokey and the Bandit. But there would be something interesting to get into, especially if you're a bit of a prepper as well, where you need to have some sort of radio to be able to get in touch or scan the frequencies to find news and information, and you can imagine them doing that on something like this.
Yeah.
Ricky, have you ever had a play with one?
No, the only thing that comes back to mind is a bit of a story from my college days. Was that me and my friend was doing a radio station, and we got told off because it was going over the train station tunnelling. It was interfering with their signal. And it's the only that when I was reading through this, I thought, oh, it just reminded me of that, which gave me quite a good laugh. But no, I've had no other sort of interaction with it at all.
Yeah, could be good fun, I think. The other story was from Harry Myrie, who was talking about an article he picked up about Amazon. Harry lives in America, so it may be kind of US first or whatever. But they've got a plan to provide an internet service to people by launching 3,000 satellites into low orbit. In the next couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I think, Amazon intend to launch 3,000 satellites, put them into low orbit around the Earth, and then challenge the likes of Starlink, which we've spoken about before. Ian Barton had that, if you remember, and provide people with an internet service via satellite. Be interesting to see where that goes. And obviously, Amazon have still got pots of money to throw at projects like that, even though they're laying off all their staff.
Yeah, you got to wonder if there's still space up there for 3,000 satellites as well.
Yeah.
And how do they get them back down again? I think that was some sort of rule, is that whenever you want to put a satellite up, you have some sort of retrieval system in place, or you've got a time and a date that it's going to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and burn up.
Oh, right.
So things that are coming through now, because I know the Chinese are quite good at not taking responsibility for some of their leftover bits and pieces, and 20 tons of tech comes rolling through the atmosphere and lands somewhere, anywhere. They don't know where, but there's a 1 in 3 chance that it'll hit land, and those are pretty good odds. That it'll go into water, obviously, too.
Yeah. So be careful.
Interesting.
Be careful what you say about the Chinese. You'll be kneecapped.
Kneecap. What are you talking about? They're bankrupt now. They probably don't have the internet. So Amazon doing broadband or Starlink satellite connections. That's an interesting revelation, and I wonder if other companies are going to jump on the back of that as well. Are we going to start seeing Asda doing it as well, and maybe some other smaller companies deciding?
It must be really expensive, though. I mean, to make 3,000 satellites and launch them, and there must be some limit to people's amount of money they've got available to do this stuff.
Well, is it that expensive though? Because we saw the British attempt that unfortunately didn't actually happen. That proved to be a lot less expensive than sending up a standard shuttle with crane and arm to put satellites in place. It was just a big missile that would go pew and do it all itself. That would be great. Right. So maybe there is some sort of private companies out there that are going to do that. And obviously Elon Musk has his company, but I wonder if Amazon could approach him and say, can we put in some 3,000 satellites just over there by the chair, and then you just drop them into the atmosphere, and we'll start up a Starlink type thing? Right. Would he allow that?
If it's that cheap, we'll put one up for Tech Addict, shall we?
We could do, yeah. be a bean can with some wires sellotape to it, but yeah. Yes. Quite right. All right. We'll just move on to the hard line for the hardware, where we've got lots of exciting things to talk about. We're going to start with Razer, because they have this new soundbar that has a little infrared camera that watches you. It deletes the images straight away, but it watches you to see exactly where your head is, and it does this beam forming so that it pushes the audio out depending on where your ears are. So if you turn your head or you sit slightly to the side, you don't have to worry about whether or not you are still getting the best audio quality out of your speakers that you may have. Because it's always a problem whenever gamers are maybe using their PC speakers on their desk, and they lean over to the left. Their standard speaker isn't quite as loud on the right as it would be to the one on the left, and it can cause problems. So Razer have addressed this and taken it forward and built something that does what we want it to do, apparently. Ted, I imagine you've got your eye on this.
My ear on it.
You're right.
We spoke about something that they were doing with the kind of visual side of this, someone tracking your eyes. Well, this one seems to track your head and sends the audio. We also talked months and months ago about a system whereby some company, I can't remember who it was, were sending directly to your ears the sound. Now, I don't know if this Razer version cuts out the sound from. So if you've got someone sat next to you, I'm not sure if Razer is saying they won't hear it, just you will.
I don't think so.
Right, okay. So this is slightly different to that, though, but it's tracking your head going around the room. And, yeah, I mean, presumably it'll be like sitting there with a pair of headphones on, except that you haven't got the headphones on. And, it's not private listening for you alone. So it looks interesting to me.
Yeah, Ricky, anything you want? Would you have one?
Yeah, I'd be interested. I've had a few sound equipments. I've had a few bits from Creative, and I know they're always trying to. The only thing I noticed with this, reading through it, is it's going to cost $150 more for just the AI feature. That's the only difference between the V20 Pro and the V20 or the V2s.
Yeah.
It is that, and I wondered if people would actually pay to have that difference. I know some people would, and it's necessary. But when you are gaming or enjoying content, do you actually move that often? I know I certainly don't, but it depends, doesn't it, I think?
Well, whenever I first watched it, I imagined that it was maybe more for people who are using their PlayStation or their Xbox on their TV. But then they showed the desk set up with someone sitting at their desk, and I thought, that's a bit pointless. You know, if they want that, you can spend far less money and get a pair of headphones that are probably going to do a better job, to be honest, and it's a bit more private. So where there must have been some sort of need for this to arrive, and I just don't understand it. But then I thought that perhaps speakers are the one thing that you don't really invest terribly often in for your computer. I dare say that people would buy a new processor, new RAM, or a new monitor, keyboard, mouse before they even entertain the idea of replacing their speakers terribly often. If you look at your speakers now, you've probably had them for a few years, unless you're Ted Salmon. But this is something that, you know, if you're going to change your speakers, there's a lot of people who will go, I want the best, coolest thing to have, and this does something that the others don't. It might be time for it.
I'll tell you what it doesn't say anything about here, I don't think, is the range of them. So, for example, if you walk across the room, will it keep tracking you and keep doing it, or will it run out? I mean, presumably if you go out of the room and go down the corridor to go to the toilet, it will lose you then. Or maybe it needs a visual... perhaps it's only kind of, if you're sat in front of it. I don't know, it doesn't really cover that bit, does it?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it must be just for someone sitting stationary in front of it and just moves their head a little bit. Yeah. It's not going to follow you out of the room, round the corner, down the staircase, into the car.
Yes, off to Edinburgh for the afternoon. Oh, I can still hear it.
But Ted, you could take this and you could set it on top of your Roku Stream Deck as well. No, Roku soundbar.
Oh, the soundbar, yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Yes,
because I suppose it doesn't have the TV or anything built into it, so it's very much for desktop computers more so than the entertainment thing. I don't know where I got that from. That's just me being a moron as usual. All right, Ted, I know you're busting to talk about it. What's happening with Motorola and their new leak?
No, not really. This is a very boring story. I did offer it up for deletion in the recording notes, but you haven't taken me up on that. The Motorola G53 and G73 have just been announced. Or kind of leaked. They're really not very exciting. They're low-end chipsets. It's the Snapdragon 480 Plus. Now, you might remember that the XR20 has got the Snapdragon 480, but this is the Plus version. And apparently they're likening that to something like the 700 series of Snapdragon. So it's not kind of, back in the arc, but it's kind of half decent. There's that 720p LCD display, though, Ricky, we referred to earlier, and that, I think, is a step too far. For a 6.5-inch screen, I wouldn't be happy with that, and I don't know who would, frankly. The G52's got a 1080p display, and that seems a bit of a step down, really. It depends which ones you're comparing it with, really. But they've retained the 3.5mm audio jack, a nice big battery, which is what the Motorola tend to do. Stereo speakers on the cheapest of devices going on here. Price is not available, but the better one of the two, the G73, does get up to I think it's 128 gigabytes. So I think the little one is stuck on 64. But it's a couple of uninteresting, non-techy, high-end budget phones coming from Motorola.
Nice. All right. Well, I figured you would be really, really excited about them, but obviously not.
Well, there are limits.
Ricky, is there anything standing out there that's making you go, well, I could possibly, or is it
5,000 millionth hour battery is not bad. That's not bad. Doesn't look like it's overly fast charging though, so it may take you a day and a half. But no, I'd say 5,000 battery. Expandable storage on one of the devices. Again, that's good because we're seeing a lot of that being removed now from devices.
Yeah.
A lot of that's been removed, as well as other things. They're okay. I would say it all depends what you're in the market for, and it's really hard when a device like this comes up because there's so much to choose from. And it very much depends what you need, and also it depends where it's available as well. Like when I've put something on YouTube, a lot of people said to me, "Oh, that's not available in my region, and how do I get it?" So it all depends what regions this is available in.
Yeah, they tend to target South America, don't they, first with Motorola.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on from Motorola's uninspiring thing to one thing that you said was great about the Motorola was the 200 megapixel camera, but Samsung has a 200 megapixel camera as well that's likely to appear in the S23 Ultra. What do we know about this?
Which is strangely not as big a sensor as the Motorola, because the Motorola Edge 30 Ultra has got a HP1, an ISOCELL HP1, which is 1/1.22 inch sensor. So that equates, we think, to 14 millimeters diagonal measurement, right? And this new HP2, which sounds like an upgrade, is a 1/1.3 inch, which equates with 12 millimeter diagonal. So physically, it doesn't appear to be as big. They're talking about putting this into the Galaxy S23 Ultra, which is coming on the 1st of February, allegedly. And it just seemed like it was a step down. However, I talked to the guru on cameras in phones, Steve, about this, and he said that it's not just about the size of the sensor, it's about what they do with it, and that Samsung are claiming that it's got better light gathering capability on it and blah blah blah, and they've just made it better. So even though it's physically not as big, other things make up for it. Any thoughts?
Not really, Ricky.
Well, I was just like Samsung, the S22 only had a 108 megapixel sensor, which was huge. And it, as you said, it depends how they utilize this. And I've seen it work really well with some devices where they've had a great lens. I think Huawei had the Leica lens, and what they did with the software was fantastic results on one of their devices. The next one, they just didn't seem to get it right. And I know Samsung worked really hard together with the lens. And I was just wondering, because they've got a HP2, haven't they, and the HP1 and HP3. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So are they opting not to use the HP3 in any of their new devices?
Yeah, I think it's not available yet. That was the impression.
Okay.
The impression I got, that was the next one along.
But I would be interested for me, like, I really enjoy taking sort of macro photos and sort of seeing how close and detailed, because for myself, that's when I get to see everything. Is I'll take thousands. I think I've got about 16,000 photos in my Google Drive or wherever, and it's because I don't want to miss a memory, but I take so many photos and then I can zoom in and see stuff. So I do like to zoom in on photos, and you can really notice those that do the pixel binning and those that where you're able to sort of zoom in and see as much as possible. When you put them on a larger display, you can really tell. I don't know if I'll go for a Samsung device because I'm enjoying the Fold so much. I have got to give it back at some point, but it'd be interesting to take a look at them and see what they offer.
Yeah.
Well, I think the step up here is gradual. You know, we're getting a 108 megapixel camera to 200 megapixel camera, which is more of a crowd pleaser than anything, because you can't sell something with a lower number than before. You have to put in some new number that's bigger than it was before. Otherwise, it just won't sell, as happened with HTC years ago with their ultra pixel camera.
But it's all about physics, isn't it? There's only so much space, as Steve was saying. There's only so much space you can get in a thin device. We've already seen the Motorola device I've got here. The camera sticks out quite a way. Because they're making room for that bigger sensor. So if you suddenly put a 1-inch sensor in the back of a phone, you've got to make it fatter. And it might be a, by then, 300 megapixel sensor, but actually are the public going to live with something that is fatter? I've got a Galaxy Z Flip 3 here, Ricky, and I find that really, really beautifully thin. When it's opened up, if you particularly if you haven't got a case on it, you think, good grief, how on earth have they made it that thin? But if you try to stuff a big sensor in there and make the glass work with that, it's just going to be fatter, isn't it?
It is. And again, I think Samsung really nailed it with their Flip variant. I think they're moving from strength to strength with the 3 and the 4. First generations, I think, was always a testing phase, but it must be enough units must be sold for them to create more.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think this year there's a few different ones coming to the market. I know Oppo have released a second generation of theirs, or third generation. I know Honor have got things on the way as well as I think Xiaomi had something as well. So it seems like everyone's jumping on board.
That's a neat segue into our N2 Flip, I suppose, which I was watching the further down the show notes. Sorry to leap about, but the Oppo Find N2 Flip, I was watching Flossie Carter's review. I do find him really funny to watch. He had one of these in his hand, a Chinese variant, and he was loving it. And what I like about the N2 Flip is not only is it nice and slim and thin and all the rest of it, but it's actually got this big screen on the back, and where he was demonstrating on this extra stuff you can do with that screen because it's bigger over the other Flip devices, and it works really well. It's also in portrait and not in landscape, which works really well. Mm-hmm. The only thing against it, in my mind, like it was for the Motorola Razer 2022 or whatever it was called, is that it's got no Qi charging, which is really annoying because the Samsung ones have got that. But yeah, so yeah, any thoughts? Anyone watched a video about the N2 Flip?
I'd seen the portrait screen. And as they're showing it on some of the bits that we've looked through, it's great for social media. I think it's great for that. I think they've done it that way because it could be used for likes of YouTube Shorts or TikTok and creating content like that. Mm-hmm. And it's a different way of doing it, which is nice to see. It's different compared to what other competitive companies are doing. So for me, the specs look pretty good as well, actually, for the device, just having a quick look through. So, like Qi charging, I like having wireless charging now for myself. It saves me scratching up my device trying to put the cable in. I just plonk it down anywhere and it just charges, which is great. I do prefer it, but
it is a nice looking device.
It's a good looking device, yeah. And then the Oppo Find N range just really does seem to just turn heads every time it comes along. They're the most exciting company, and these are the most exciting devices coming along because you don't know what's going to happen next, but they seem to nail it every time.
Yeah, very good. I like it indeed. I want to see the Fold as well, the bigger version of it, the N2 Fold, the update on that one. But I haven't seen anything much of that yet, not in terms of it being in someone's hand. But that screen, the portrait screen on the back, it's just made for short. We were talking about shorts and TikTok video earlier, and that screen on the back is just made for that because you can use the thing folded to 90 degrees on the desk, effectively making it in its own tripod, and then the person in front of you can see themselves how they look in the TikTok video.
Yeah. I think it's I'm guessing it's got, by the looks of it, a wide, ultra wide lens anyway, so you will be able to see things, get things in. So it is I think they've thought about that, definitely.
Yeah.
So
He was talking about it costing him $1,200, but that was the Chinese import. I reckon that they were going to pitch this at $999 myself.
Yeah. That would be a sensible one. You know, it's one that I would consider buying for my wife.
That's better.
Because it just seems to. I don't know. My daughter's boyfriend has the Samsung Flip 3, I think it is, and there's just something about whenever he uses it, it doesn't, dare I say, seem like a proper manly phone. There's just something lesser about it that I can't. I'm sorry for being sexist or un-PC or whatever, but just whenever I see him using it, it's just, no.
I'm going to jump in here. It's because I'm so heavy-handed as a male. I'm so clumsy, heavy-handed, and you're so worried about it. You're so worried about this device.
Yeah.
I think you take your time folding it. You don't. It reminds me like of the old Samsung clamshells that used to just flip around and flip close and stuff like that. I wouldn't dare do that with like a flip or a fold. You just take your time closing it, and I think that's the thing, is that you see someone slow down with a device instead of just chucking it in a pocket, chucking it in a bag.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's that. I don't think there's anything sort of sexist or prejudiced towards it. I think it's just because of that unique design, and I think you have to look at the design. I always look at it. I'm always intrigued by the design for the foldable devices.
It's nothing.
No, I think you're right.
It's nothing to do with the pink colour, then.
Well, his one's black, and I think he stuck some sort of awful Pokemon thing over the top of it as well. But you're right. Whenever he does, he treats it so delicately, and maybe that's it. It reminds me of how my wife would treat hers, although she's clumsy and she's broken more phones than I remember buying her a phone once on a Saturday afternoon, and she went down to the nightclub that evening and she dropped it down the toilet. Her brand new phone. I think
a lot of it is also to do with the way it's marketed. So if you, for example, if you go to Amazon and look for a case for a Samsung Z Flip, it's littered with stuff that's all blingy and all with tassels on and flowers on, and they're clearly marketing it at young female audiences, and I think that comes across. And it's not really to do with what it is or how it is to some degree. I think it's how it's been pitched.
Yeah. All right, so I'm not alone. I'm not going to be cancelled whenever this gets out later on today. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Ted. Hey. Well, we'll move on to the Samsung Galaxy Book 3, which is launching fairly soon. I think we're going to be seeing it at the Samsung Pact event, which is in. We'll still be talking
February,
about. Yeah. We've got another show to do before that. Right? Okay. But this is a new, very sexy-looking Samsung Windows laptop, isn't it? I think they left that one crucial detail out. Yeah. Because it could have been a Chromebook. They did do the Galaxy Book Chromebook ones as well, didn't they? Yeah. This has an i5 and an i7 flavour to it. There's 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, up to 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD inside it. It's got a 16-inch Super AMOLED 2800 by 1800p portrait, I think. P. They don't usually leave the P in there.
Yeah,
that put me off there. I know
it's either P or it isn't.
It's progressive, but they don't normally put the P in. An I will go in there. It's 13 millimeters thick. It's 1.6 kilograms. And it's a 65-watt charging solution there as well. There's an S Pen included inside it as well, which is kind of nice. So it's a really nice-looking laptop here. Ricky, would you have one of these?
I would. And again, I'm going to come back to the question that you mentioned in last week's one, is where do you put the S Pen?
Yeah.
It's great that an S Pen... Is there a slot?
It says in box. It doesn't say in slot.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it does have a silo. I know you mentioned that last week. And, yeah, it looks lovely. And I'm presuming that's going to be Windows-based, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
Windows 11.
Yeah. I'm wondering... no, they're not going to give that away, are they? With pre-orders, it's going to be a separate entity.
Oh, yeah, it'll be an expensive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking for price. I looked up the book 2 yesterday, and it was like about £600, but that's been out for a while. So I would imagine this will be 1,000.
Definitely so.
Well, I'm sure
it
it'll
looks
all have
very
leaked.
nice.
But the Super AMOLED display, that's great, isn't it? I mean, we're talking like a phone. I mean, that's a good question. We talked about screens earlier for sight impairments, Ricky. And do you think that there's a difference for you between a good AMOLED screen and a good LCD display?
And it depends what you want it to do. So obviously for myself, I switch to dark mode quite often just because it's easier. The contrast difference is easier for me. But for other people, they may need to have a lot of light in the background of their display and what they're having. And with that, it's going to be pretty bright. It would be interesting to know how bright that's going to be.
Yeah.
Because with an AMOLED, normally they can get very, very bright. And obviously that will have impact on battery. But it will be interesting to see. I bet that looks great for images, though, and content.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Particularly with its 16-inch screen. It does look nice. I quite fancy one as well. No, mustn't.
Must not.
I know. That's you can go poor very quickly with this time of year with different technology coming up.
Well, continuing on the idea of the Samsung display, they're showing off a new folding phone hinge that can rotate a whopping 360 degrees. That's breaking your Samsung Fold, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that's going backwards, isn't it? They're kind of folding it out the other way. A bit like you end up with a device a bit like that Xiaomi Mix thingy that was out a couple of years ago, which never really made any big mark, which was just glass the whole way around. And you've got to think to yourself, if you're holding it with that big fold on the outside, it's so susceptible to being dropped down a toilet and knackered, isn't it?
Yeah. But I suppose if it's folded out, it's not going to fit round the U-bend, so you'll be all right. It might just touch the water.
And I suppose most sensible people wouldn't carry it that way. They would carry it folded inwards, so it wouldn't be a big issue. But still susceptible, I think.
But it does give you an interesting idea of what could possibly happen with apps and things, and being able to do stuff like that. How it orientates it. It's going to be Google as well who are going, oh, will you stop it? We've just about got it working for landscape here whenever you open it, but now you're going to go and do this to us now as well. Flipping heck.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of the Huawei one that folded that way as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That they had one that folded that way. It was very interesting.
It had a big chunk down the side of it as well.
Yeah. It's sort of, they sort of tried to market is that's where you held it. And it just wasn't right. And I got to see that as a very early prototype, luckily, and we were told exactly how to fold it, or we potentially wasn't even allowed to fold it because it was so fragile, and it folded that way. However, if you do fold it that way, that potentially opens up the hinge for extra dust and debris, I think. I think by folding it that way, if you think it folds in on itself, the screen sort of goes within itself, doesn't it? And that's why you get the recess of the line down the device.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you stretch it open around itself, so folding it the opposite way, that means the screen and the hinge are going to be more prone to dust, I would say. How are they going to sort of cover that? I'd be interested to see that one. And a fun little Easter egg, you just mentioned that Google was struggling. Even on the Fold 4, when you go into... Mine's just been updated to Android and One UI. And when you do the Easter egg for Android, it only shows you on the small screen. It won't work for the larger screen. So you tap Android several times and then you get the Easter egg for it, they haven't worked that out. They haven't put that on properly, so it doesn't work on the large display.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Right.
So presumably, when you close this in on itself, all the outside of it is just metal or glass or whatever. Or are they going to put a little screen on the outside as well? It's not very clear, is it?
Well, maybe you just be able to highlight certain areas where you want the screen to show. Maybe there might be settings inside that you could say, show half on this screen, or thumbnail size, or what have you.
Do you see
a bit like resizing a widget.
Do you see what I mean, though? If you close it up, then it's just going to be a block of glass.
Oh, right, okay.
I would have thought that they would have also put some sort of monitoring screen or something, like with the Z Flip, on the outside. So if it's closed up, you can still see something of what's going on. I don't know. No idea. They're not showing the outside of it, are they?
Where's the cameras also?
Yeah, good question.
But would you need to fold it the other way? You can fold it both ways. I don't know why they're even bothering to have it fold in on itself again.
To protect the screen, I suppose.
Oh yeah, but if they were to work at it so that the screen doesn't get damaged.
Yes, for goodness sake, come on.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll let Samsung. We're not going to sort that out for Samsung.
Yeah.
It's probably a bad idea for us.
We'll find out on the 1st of March, shall we?
Yeah.
Not March, yeah. 1st of February.
Yeah. All right. Meanwhile, we can tantalise and drool over the RedMagic 8 Pro, which is launching globally fairly soon. Mm-hmm. I think I saw a date on this, did I not?
I don't know.
February 2nd. So it's coming out the day after Unpacked.
Okay.
And this thing looks the business.
Looks fabulous, doesn't it?
Wow. Obviously,
we're all drooling.
Absolutely. Well, it seems to be focused more for gamers and that kind of thing. It's got that kind of futuristic, cyborgy, android, cyberpunky look. And it's got text and things like that written all over it to make it look like a Halo-style cargo case or something that you'd find on the ship. But it runs the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor paired with either 12 or 16 gigabytes of RAM at DDR5, and it comes with 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage, which is a lot. There's a 6,000 milliamp hour battery in there, and it's got 65 watts for wired charging and some built-in ICE 11.0 cooling in there just to keep things, I'd imagine, cool. Mm-hmm. There's a 6.8-inch, 120 hertz full HD AMOLED panel on the front. And yeah, is there anything that we can go, nah, I don't like it because
it hasn't got wireless charging? But then gaming phones don't tend to have wireless charging, do they?
No.
That's not something that goes with the territory. Again, I was watching Flossie Carter. He's got one of these. I'm not really a huge Flossie Carter fan. It just so happens this week that two of his devices he got in are bang up to date, and you can see when he's got it in his hand how gorgeously made it is. It's very blocky, very much like the Nothing Phone 1 or a big iPhone. You know, it's blocky round the edges, and it feels like it's a industrial device. I've no doubt. You can also get it with the transparent back cover, which makes it look like you can see through and inside to it. Loads of dancing lights, as you said, Gareth. It's worth watching that video to just see him handling it for a few minutes. Capacitive triggers on the corners, loads of bells and whistles to do with gaming, which most of us wouldn't need, and probably aimed at really deep kind of people that are really deep gaming people. But yeah, speakers, he said, are fantastic. Obviously, you can't really hear them on a video, but that would be the one that I would be focusing in on. And only $650, Samsung and Apple. You know, wow, I really fancy this. Ricky?
Yes, definitely so. So I know someone, so I'm going to reach out and see if I can actually try and grab a review unit of this one, because it looks fantastic. It looks bells and whistles and everything else. I just don't know if I'd be able to put it to its paces, though. That's the thing. It looks like it'd be able to take on everything you need it to. Camera system looks pretty good as well. Just have a quick look. 50 megapixel macro lens as well. Yeah, so 8 megapixel ultra wide. So it seems to have enough on there. Is it a triple? Yeah, triple. So yeah, definitely put it.
Excellent looking phone. And Nubia's, they constantly pop up with these really great phones that we never get to see actually selling, which here in the UK that is. But I've had a couple of Nubias in the past, and I've liked them a great deal. So I'd be interested to see what you think of it if you get your hands on it there, Ricky, as well. Yeah, do try.
Yeah, I've just gone through to their website and it says that they're not available yet, but release day. Come back on release day. Give us your email address. So yes.
All right. Next up is that Google may be building their own tags. Anyone got any? There's a video here that's linked in the show notes to XDA talking about Google killing Apple's AirTags, but I also saw there was a story about Google killing, or Google actually releasing their AirTags type things in the future. Ted, what do you have to say about this?
The story here is that it is alleged that Google have found a way to utilise the Play system in all Android phones across the planet. They estimate 3 billion, which is going to blow out the water the tag system that Samsung have got, because that's locked into the Galaxy phones and Apple locked into iPhones. But with this Google one, they reckon that by putting it into the Play services, everyone's in. And so your user network, where you track things, your case going through customs or whatever it is you're doing, you're much more likely to have one of those 3 billion phones nearby to report the position of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be called the G tag. I've seen elsewhere as well, looking into this myself. I think it's going to be called the G tag or G spot.
G-spot,
which
right.
I don't think they're going to go for that one. I don't think that's the best marketing, but G tag definitely so. And yeah, it can go all the way back to KitKat, which is it Android 4?
Yeah, Android 4, that's right.
Which is incredible, isn't it? I can remember. Well, I wish they carried on the names. I think the naming should have carried on. I think
it was easier.
That fun. Yeah. I think we've lost a bit of the fun. I think iOS used to do it as well. They used to have different names for some of their early software. And yeah, it would be interesting. I think it'd be a good thing. So I have some Apple tags, AirTags, and they're on the keys. I've used the system once to find my keys. The suitcase was great to make sure it got on the aeroplane, and sort of it was great to know when it was coming off the belt. It seemed to work pretty well. However, I haven't really overused them. I'd say the biggest plus side that I found was that Apple actually allowed you to change the battery for them. They didn't actually restrict you to that. Other than that, mine did start to sort of need a battery replacement after 14 months.
Oh, I don't think that's bad. They're
No.
quoting a year, aren't they?
No, I got 14 months.
That's good.
I got 14 months, which is really good. And that was on, like, my partner had a set of keys, I had a set of keys. I always put one in my tech bag for whenever I go anywhere, just to make sure that I can sort of track it. But it'd be interesting to see what Google, because, as you said, 3 billion devices. I know Apple have a lot of devices, and theirs can only go back. I can't. Is it 14? iOS 14?
Don't know.
I think it's iOS 14 when I was looking into it myself. So they can't go back as far as what Google can.
Right. But I think the main use of this for me would not be so much finding your keys kind of activity, but it would be, I've got a little moped and it's very nickable apparently. Mopeds are prime targets for kids to nick. And if you put one of these in the battery compartment or something, then you could always kind of tag where it was, and the people nicking it probably wouldn't know that. And other things, other equipment. I think that security end of it to me would be more interesting than the where's my keys, or where's my whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I liked it from an accessibility point of view. So if someone that's visually impaired, totally blind maybe, it was great to locate things. Say you did drop something,
Right, yeah.
and it can make an audible noise. I know Samsung had that feature as well, and the precision finding was really good, and it worked really well as long as you... So I tested this for a little video a while back, and I was downstairs, and I knew the keys were upstairs, and I used precision finding, and it said I was on top of them.
Oh, right.
But because it was directly above me, in my home, it couldn't quite precisely find it. Outside, really well, because of this, obviously, signal strength and everything like that. But, indoors, I was downstairs and they were upstairs, but directly above me, and it said, right, you found them. I was like, okay, I just need to reach through the ceiling and find them.
So if you were living in a tower block, or a block of apartments that was 18 stories, then it could have been on one of those stories. Yeah. But you knew whereabouts in a 2D world it was.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Moving on to Nixie. Ted, you like your Nixies, don't you?
I do, and this one is just a quick one. This will hang on how good the speaker is, I think, because this is a Nixie tube clock and speaker. So often with these little devices, though, the speaker just lets it down, but it just looks like a real industrial design, retro, that kind of clock thing that we used to have in about 1960, and it just looks like it's a great bunch of fun. However, when you watch, one thing that I was concerned about, and I thought, oh no, when I watched the video of this woman using it and demonstrating it, when she reached out to the volume knob, if you look closely, as she touches the volume knob, it kind of moves down in her hand, and it looks like it is made of metal, and it's a proper kind of grippy metal, aluminium or something. And you see her do that, you think, oh no, it's not. It's moved sideways or downwards, and it looks like it's floppy and horrible in there. Now, it could be a prototype, of course, and that could be a bad mock-up for purposes of selling the thing, but it looks really good. And the what's that thing called? A gyroscope. Bouncing around with the music would just be great fun, and echoing all the stuff like the clock settings and alarms in the Nixie display. Great fun. I fancy one of those, don't you?
I kind of did up until I saw the text under the numbers, which says "Made in China with Love," which I don't have anything against that text being on the box, but I don't particularly want it on the clock.
It's a prototype, that one.
It better be. Better not be on the finished shoot. But they're $350 or $287, depending on your exchange rate at the time, which is a bit of a strange thing to add in there.
And that's 30% off as well. This is a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So it's going to.
Are you going for it, Ted?
No, I wouldn't. I couldn't justify spending £400 on one of these. I just like to look at it. It's an I want one of those, Ricky.
No, it doesn't for me. It's a bit of a sort of steam rock pump of industrial house, but no, not for me. And I noticed the text as well, and I was like, oh, that's a bit awkward. Maybe for Chinese New Year, this is what they're going to be giving as presents. I don't know.
But I can imagine that the speaker's going to be crap. I mean, it might not be. That might be really unfair. I've not heard it, but I could just imagine it.
But you're right, there is a little bit of a wobble to those knobs.
Have you watched the video? Yeah.
I watched the video, but also on the Kickstarter page as well, you can scroll down to where they're turning up the volume, and you see the volume meter go up on the left, and the wee oscilloscopy type thing, or whatever you call it, the scope, going boingy, boingy, boingy. But the one that's not being touched is wobbling ever so slightly. But obviously, it's a mock-up.
Yeah. We would hope so at £400, wouldn't you?
Hopefully, yeah. But you never know. All metal unibody. Yeah, it's tempting. It's a really nice one. I
can remember going into John Lewis, and I was after a DAB radio, and I couldn't believe the quality of the turning dials and the knobs on the almost all of them. They were floppy and horrible, and I came away from that not buying one. So I'm not buying that rubbish. It's just floppy and horrible, and I hate it. And it just looks like it's not made properly. I did understand that they might be demo models, but I inquired about that, and no, they're not. That's just how they all are. That kind of stuff is just made cheaply, it seems, these days.
Yeah. Well, no, I remember buying, on the topic of the DAB radio, there was a one called The Bug, which looked a bit like an old iMac. It had an angle poise screen that doubled as a pair of eyes whenever you turned it on.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really plasticky, and the buttons were plasticky, and you weren't sure if you pressed the buttons. They kind of just mulched down into the machine. Yeah. When you were hitting it, and there was a big... they never showed it with the aerial sticking up the back, but it was about 200 quid or something, and I remember reading a bunch of reviews on it, and it was that this is the best thing ever. And I got one, wasn't particularly enamoured by it, installed it, started tuning it in and setting up the wake up feature to tune into, what was your woman, Sarah, what's her face, he took over from Terry Wogan on... Oh, Terry Wogan as well, I suppose. No, I think she was on before him, and then Terry Wogan took over at 7 o'clock or something like that. Right. That's kind of when I was getting out of bed. But sometimes it just didn't work. It would turn on, and you'd get static fuzz. And I'm like, digital radio, what are you talking about? And it would untune itself and things. It was just crap. And they never made another one afterwards. I don't even know what it did with it. Because it was an expensive unit. I think I must have thrown it out eventually, but
I think generally you kind of get what you pay for it. I've got a RUARK, RUARK, little hi-fi thingy, and it cost I bought it when I had plenty of money. It was like 400 and something quid, and it really is absolutely lovely. And all the dials and everything are just like they used to make them. But that was 400 and something quid, as you say. Yeah. If you pay less than that, which going back to the Nixie tube clock and speaker thingy, you'd think that for 400 quid it would be good. Anyway, we don't know, do we? No, we don't. And we'll probably never find out or talk about this again, in fact. So, moving on to In the Name of the Game. Ricky, are you a gamer?
I dabble. I have a go.
So, no.
No, not really. No. I always get moaned. I get sent all of these monitors and I don't have a PC gaming machine. I'm trying to say to people, look, being visually impaired and getting shot at several thousand times and dying several thousand times is very boring, so why would I even try? But no, I like to have a go. I have consoles, I have the Xbox and the PlayStation, but I have a dabble.
Okay. You didn't get into Stadia then when it was up and going?
I had one of the controllers, and I was gutted when I listened last week about the Bluetooth. I got rid of it, and I'm gutted now because the prices have shot up everywhere.
I know. Some folks are reporting that it does work over in the MeWe group, and there's a link in the show notes as to where you can adapt yours. I had a go to see if I could adapt mine, but it didn't go very well because I can't find them. I don't know where I've put them. I have moved things recently, but I have 3 of them in a box somewhere.
Whoops.
Here.
You better do it before the end of the year, because apparently they're taking this away at the end of December.
Why?
I don't know, but the report I read was that they Google are making this upgrade available, and they're switching the switch off on the 31st of December 2023.
Why don't they just continue to manufacture the joypad?
Well, yeah.
Because it's a good joypad. Yeah. That was the thing that got the rave reviews when it first came out.
Yeah.
Mm. And the PlayStation have just launched the DualShock Pro or whatever for 200 quid. Or $200 at least. Google could do the same thing and sell those for about 30 quid and just have a little sideline. That's neat.
They could. You could see it in the Google store, couldn't you? You could have a gaming tag, and then those controllers are there. Why not?
Yeah. Everybody liked them. Yeah. I love them. Right. Well, that's it for Name of the Game. We'll just move on to something else. So, flap your trap about an app. where we've got lots of things to talk about. We're going to start with Microsoft and Windows. And you remember that thing, Groove, the music app that came with Windows, that everybody hated it? Well, they're getting rid of it, and they're going to replace it with Windows 11 Media Player, which is a much better sounding utility to be able to play your music back on. Hopefully it'll be a nice, fully featured thing, but I've got a funny feeling that, Ted, you've got all the knowledge of this, don't you?
Not really, but I have tried. I've looked at it. I don't use Groove Music. I use my own player. But I fired it up and looked at this. I updated it from the Microsoft Store, and it was supposed to be that the news here is that the Windows 10 is having the Windows 11 Media Player made available to it through the store. So,
right.
And they're changing the player from Groove into called Media Player, I suppose. Anyway, so I went through the process and did that on my Windows 10 machine, and it looked like it was doing it. It sorted it all out, done and dusted. When I went to launch it, it still says in the top left-hand corner, Groove Music. So it certainly hasn't changed the label in my one, but it does look as though it's the new layout of the Windows 11 version of the Media Player. So I think it's an interim thing. They haven't quite got it right yet. And you're quite right about functionality. I don't think it's any better or has anything more about it than anything else that you play music with. It does go off and get album art, as long as it's not too obscure, and you can do playlists and stuff. How it interacts with other devices, I've no idea. I don't use it, but yeah, that was my observations.
Right, I'm just opening it up here, and yes, I've got the media player, but then I'm running Windows 11, so I'm imagining that I've always had it. I've just never opened it until now.
Sure.
Wow, I was all excited there. It's something new. Ricky, have you known about this all this time, and no one's told me?
No, I've seen it. It looks a very clean interface, but for me, I don't really use it anymore. I just use streaming services.
Yeah.
I'm sort of tied into so many streaming services that you don't really use that anymore. I used to sort of use like the media player or iTunes because I grew up with Windows. And then I was dragged over to the dark side thanks to my friend. So, and I've just used Mac ever since.
Yeah.
But it very much reminds me of iTunes.
I was just going to say, iTunes, I think that they were looking like each other until I started to look more closely. And Microsoft have this way of making consumer tools look like business ones. Everything seems to be business orientated and corporate orientated. And when you sit back and look at this new in this media player, it looks like it's for business. It doesn't have the warmth that iTunes had or other players like VLC or whatever else you want to throw at it. It just seems like it's a business tool.
Yeah, and you're better off going and getting Winamp or something like that. Because it feels more like you're pumping some tunes out.
Indeed.
Yeah. I imagine this is just for, the suits to check out the latest media CD from some company they're looking to buy or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, well, one thing that you can get excited about is OpenAI Chat that I'm currently signing up for. Ted, what do you think of it?
Yeah, we've been playing with this, and I'm sure, Ricky, you have as well. In our experience, it's absolutely fabulous. It works really well. It's got limitations. I asked it one day to write me a 4,000-word phone review, and it didn't know where to start. It said, no, I can't do that. But I asked it to summarise the facts about, in this case, the Motorola Edge 30 Ultra, and it got all that data wrong. In fact, it told me that this device was mythical and it doesn't work. However,
mythical? Did it actually use that word?
It did. It said,
mythical beast.
This is a mythical device. It doesn't exist.
Wow.
And I did wonder if that's because it's not been released in America, that it's just not on their radar. Anyway, the point was that we then started chucking other stuff at it, like write me a story about a goat and a cat, and it does incredibly well with that kind of thing. And it's a work in progress, and it's amazing that we can just go and play with it. You can throw anything at it, and it has a go, and quite often it gets it right. Ricky, have you had a play?
Oh, I love this. I've used this for so many things. So I want to. In my previous role, I worked for the RNIB, which is Royal National Institute of Blind People, and we had to do mapping of counties. So we needed to know towns, cities, and populations. So for me to sit and do that, that would take a good half hour, 40 minutes. I typed it into chat GTP, and it done it in 10 seconds. It names all the cities. It got everything right.
Yeah.
It's fantastic for that. It's good for it. I would say you have to ask it the right things. So you have to have, you can be quite precise, but if you ask for a very general part of it, it can be quite frustrating. I've done the same as Marcus Brown for a YouTube intro. It worked great. It summarised the product for me, for my hook into my YouTube video, and it was fantastic. And while we've been talking today, I put in our story about the Razer soundbar. And the whole website, it's put it into one paragraph for me that saying that the Razer unveiled this in CES, that has great sound, uses AI technology. It's picked out every point from the website and summarised it in a perfect little paragraph for me. And it has picked out every point that was in that website. However, Google is learning now so it isn't plagiarised, but it will say that's AI content created.
Oh, right.
So Google is starting to let people know when they are seeing content created, but like yourself, Ted, when you've done your Ultra review, your Motorola Ultra review, you've done that. However, Google sometimes can realise when AI has generated. So it's letting people know that it's an AI-generated subject.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. I find it really fascinating. I'm just waiting now for a monthly subscription to come for this. I just know that it's coming.
Definitely.
I've used it for YouTube business as well. It's great for YouTube video ideas. Mm-hmm. It's good for tags as well. So for tagging videos, tagging media, it knows all of that. It does have some limitations because it does keep throwing up about 2021. It only knows data from 2021. So I'm wondering why.
That's why my phone is mythical.
Yeah, it keeps coming up with me that it's saying that it doesn't understand anything past 2021.
Right.
So I'm wondering that's where its limitations are.
Okay.
However, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I signed up as soon as it came out, and I've been using it I used it for my work in my previous job. I doubt if I'll be able to use it in my new job, but for YouTube, it's been fantastic. It comes up with ideas. It can give you because it utilises Google Trends, so you can ask the top trending stuff. And if you try and ask for the top trending stuff from today, it won't recognise it because it's past that 2021 point.
Okay.
I found a limitation straight away, and I'm really upset.
It won't write you a porn story.
Yeah, I said, write me a story about boobs, and it said, I'm sorry, but I'm unable to generate inappropriate content.
You're so predictable. Oh dear. So, does anyone understand the difference between OpenAI and ChatGPT, and what Microsoft are doing and what Google are doing? Ricky, do you know what that's all?
Yeah, I've read bits, but no.
Right.
I know they're different sources and they're looking to use it for different things moving forward. And I know Microsoft have just potentially paid a lot of money for one of them, haven't they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which
there's another one as well. Is it Progressive or something it's called? I think it begins with a P. And I remember watching a video when we were having our Christmas break, because I thought it'd be funny if I got Ted in on board with this and we released a podcast using it where you could sit down and record sample voice text.
Oh, yeah.
And then you could write something and it'll read it back to you in your own voice.
That's right.
You could also marry it up with... it was a very expensive thing, but you could create your own avatar of your own face and have you saying it. So you could actually do YouTube videos without having to leave the computer.
Excellent.
But it would cost a pretty penny in order to do that.
Right.
But I was thinking that I think whatever it was called, the audio one, we could have done that ourselves and had a back and forth on something like WhatsApp, and then thrown it out as an audio podcast and really annoyed people.
Yes, I think that, and it only needed a very, very short piece of your text to claim to do it from, didn't it?
Yeah.
And
but it's a way forward, and soon enough we won't have to bother generating content.
Indeed. Anyway, the second the knock-on story here from this is that, of course, ChatGPT has now been used to create malware. So, I watched a YouTube video of some guy writing code with ChatGPT, and it wrote this whole bunch of gobbledygook code, which means nothing to anyone except nerds and geeks who are writing code for programming. And apparently the knock-on from that is that people are also using it for writing malware as well. So every silver lining has a cloud, it seems.
It does, yeah. It is quite interesting. I'm just going through, just challenging it with a few silly questions, and it's quite responsive and quite thorough as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very good for research purposes. Like I said, we used it to sort of map a county and ask the county to sort of name the largest cities and towns by population, or to name charities that worked in that sector, that area. And it did. It done a very good job of doing it, which impressed me. And like I said, I got it to summarise that news story about the Razer soundbar, and it's put it in a perfect paragraph, highlighting the key points and taking the fluff out of it.
So nobody will have jobs any longer.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what we'll all do with our free time.
Ted, you'll be annoyed to hear I said, "Who is Ted Salmon?" to this.
Right.
This, and it's sorry, it couldn't find a notable person with your name, Ted Salmon.
Oh, there's an author. I'm surprised it didn't find the author, because whenever I kind of play those games, it comes up with this bloke that writes books.
Who is Ana de Armas? Right. Doesn't give you any pictures, unfortunately. But.
Yeah, that's the next thing, pictures. So we'll all be out of jobs. Gareth, what you just said about creating podcasts from our voices, nobody will have a job, and we'll have nothing to do. We'll soon have no arms and no legs because we don't go anywhere. Amazon brings everything to us. We will evolve as a species into a head, and then we'll be back to, the man with no brain.
And we'll be reconstituted into a silicone life form as well, because our bodies won't work anymore. Yes. All right, well, we'll move on from Ted's vision of the scary future to Sam Mobile, who have the skinny on Google showcasing TikTok's landscape mode on Android tablets.
Oh yeah, this works. Have you tried it?
No.
Oh, I have.
I'm not on TikTok.
Oh, right. I've tried this on my tablet, on my Samsung Galaxy tablet, and it works. It works really well. And I can't... The thing is, though, that whenever I'm using TikTok, I do it on my phone. I've never done it on a tablet before, but I suppose the kids might do it on tablets. And it puts off the kind of comments stuff on the right and the actual scrolling portrait thing on the left, and then a control panel on the left. Very, very nice. Do you use TikTok, Ricky?
Yeah, so I suppose I'm way too old to use it, but I'll be told off for using it. But but no, I've tried to, as I said, move into YouTube Shorts and TikTok, and it gets some good engagement, but you need to publish 3 to 5 things a day constantly and be on it, and to try and run sort of YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and try and be on those platforms. It is difficult. I've had some good engagement, but for me, I've just used it on sort of mobile devices. But it's a bit of fun. I never do. I just show like the latest device I have or make a video. I did say earlier, though, that I've just found a new way of... So obviously with my visual impairment, to edit a video on YouTube Shorts is not great in TikTok. The editing tools are okay, but someone with a visual impairment is quite difficult. So for me, what I do is I do it on iMovie. There's a couple of tricks that you can use on iMovie, and it just makes it really simple and easy. So then it's on a larger display. I can put the audio in correctly. I can add in all the other elements I want to and timings, and then sort of export that out and then just re-upload it, and it looks like I've recorded it on my phone, which is really helpful.
Right.
But I'm one of those person where I can just spend hours flicking through it. That's the issue.
Yeah.
If you want to waste time, jump on TikTok. Honestly,
I do that in a very controlled way. I set aside half an hour a day, and that's my limit.
And you can't bother Ted during that half hour.
I've seen quite enough zebras being eaten by lions, though.
Wow. Okay. Does this work for YouTube Shorts as well?
What, in landscape? I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if Google have done that with YouTube.
Because I'm wondering why they did TikTok first. I don't have my tablet with me.
Where's my tablet? Hang on a minute. No, it's not here. I haven't got it with me. I'll feedback on that next week.
Well, if you were to talk amongst yourselves for 2 minutes, I've found the Samsung Galaxy Tab A8 that I'm currently playing with, and I'm going to open YouTube Shorts on that.
Okay then. While you're doing that, we'll talk amongst ourselves. Twitter. The next story is Twitter, who have now banned third-party clients. I don't know, Ricky, if you use Twitter. I know Gareth does to some degree. But these third-party things, I feel sorry for the developers that have kind of spent all this effort and time doing this stuff, and their customers who have paid fees for their apps, and then they're suddenly undone.
Yeah, I used to have a TweetDeck, was it?
Yeah.
TweetDeck, I think, for the Mac.
Yeah,
I used to have that, and I've just tried to look it up and launch it, and it doesn't seem to sort of want to connect or work.
No.
There is, however, like you can get a direct Amazon download now, so you can have that. But yeah, I do feel sorry for one, the developers, and two, a sort of customer base that paid a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of money, but they had paid money into it, and obviously now's not even usable.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you wonder what the deal is with that. So if you buy, I suppose if you pay for someone's app, then you're only paying for it as a one-off payment to use it while it's the validity of its kind of life, and you can't expect a refund. I don't know. I haven't really thought that one through.
No, I was shocked though with it, because obviously I had third-party ones that I've used on the Mac desktop because it's just easier for me to use. But yeah, it seems a bit of an interesting one that they've seemed to. Since he's taken it, I think everyone wanted him to take over. Now, since he has taken over, people are like, "Oh, maybe wish he didn't."
Yeah, it looks like it's dying a death to me, Twitter. I don't use it that much. Gareth, are you naffed up about that?
I am, absolutely. I have bought a number of Twitter clients over the years, and they're not the cheapest either. To get a really good one, like what was it, Phoenix was quite a good one, and there was a couple of other ones. I can't remember what they are. I'm not going to go hooking for them at the moment.
Hoot.
But
There's one called Hoot.
Oh, there was Hootsuite as well.
Hootsuite, that's it. Yeah,
Hootsuite.
But you know, they're lost apps. They're forgotten apps now. They're just going to go away,
very sad.
Which is really sad. And I think if you click on the developers, they maybe specialise in that one app.
Yeah.
And you know, you may have to pay £5 for it every couple of years in order to carry on. I think there are some that actually have monthly subscriptions because they bring you all kinds of statistics and stuff. But I wonder what that's going to make other things as well that feed into Twitter as well. The likes of, say, TweetsMap and Buffer. They are essentially Twitter clients, but with a whole load of extra stuff, tracking and things like that. That's going in there and allowing you to be able to schedule tweets and things and have a better impact on how you use it. So you know where Ricky's saying that it's really quite time consuming to get on all of these social media things and be able to post your TikToks and your YouTubes and things like that. The likes of Buffer and TweetMap and TweetDeck and things like that. They make it a lot easier for you by allowing you to plan ahead, and you can sit down and do all things, and rather than having to wait 4 hours and then tweet out a reminder for people to watch this or something like that, you can just set it up at the time and it goes out that way. But that would then be affected by this move, which is scary. But
yeah. I've just loaded up TweetDeck. I had TweetDeck as well as a client. It's working at the moment, so obviously it'd be interesting to see. I'll keep an eye on this and see if it sort of continues. Or
well, I think the main reason for this is because of advertising. Sometimes, if you buy Fenix and things like that, you don't see the promoted tweets that Twitter usually put out. So they're going to be wanting everyone to either use the browser or use their own designated app so that their promoted tweets aren't being filtered out.
Yeah.
So it's a cash grab, essentially, by Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah, definitely so.
And as an update, no, YouTube Shorts does not work in a landscape mode.
Oh, right, okay.
So Google have gone ahead and helped TikTok first, and they'll eventually get to their own platform.
American government will be really pleased about that, won't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, right, so moving on to... Well, we've done that one, haven't we? 25 emails. If you're 25 or younger, you may never have sent an email, the Guardian reports, and you may use social messaging or social instant messaging more so than email, which is unbelievable to think that there's people out there that haven't sent an email.
Bizarre.
Ted, you would be. I know that you said the one way that people can get in touch with people is by email.
Yeah. The thing is that email is baked into my MO. I always default to email, and that might be something to do with my age and how I've grown up through the rise of technology, I suppose. But I just always assume that everyone's got an email address, but perhaps they don't. The Guardian, as you say, are reporting that the under 25-year-olds, the Z generation, are actually using. But
they've got to have email addresses to sign up for Facebook.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. There's got to be bunches of stuff that you just cannot do in messaging. If you use WhatsApp, there must be things you can't do, like the one you just described. So, yeah, what are they?
True, yeah. It's a peculiar story, and it sounds like it's trying to, show a generational gap that most people won't be able to understand. But unless they set up an email account and then even to buy things online, you have to have an email account so they can send you a receipt.
Yeah, exactly.
And kids do that constantly.
Somebody the other day I was exchanging SMS with, I said to the lady, I've got a photograph I can send you, give me your email address. She was really reluctant to give me her email address. I said, what's the problem? She said, well, don't you do WhatsApp? Or can't you send it through text messaging? And I said, well, I don't do WhatsApp because I don't want to give all my data to Facebook and blah, 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 blah. And in the end, she reluctantly gave me her email address. And I thought, and I didn't say it to her, but what's the reluctance about? She clearly didn't want to use email for personal interactions.
Yeah. It's strange that. Have you ever come across this, Ricky, this weird mentality out there?
See, I use hide my email a lot now. I use that feature that's built into iCloud, and I use that because I forever just get emails left, right and centre. I'm just thinking, though, when you sign up now, you can put in your phone number to services.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, the younger generation are using their phone number as their sign-in now instead of an email address. Because I know from my partner and stuff, when she's been signing up to stuff and when I've signed up stuff, it says name, phone number or email address. So I'm wondering if you can, because obviously you can get security verification via your phone anyway. You can get updates via text messages, say for parcel deliveries. So I'm wondering if that's where this story's come from, is that you can use your phone number and your ID as such online or to that store or company is just tagged and addressed to your phone number instead of your email address. I'm like yourself, Ted. I've got multiple different email accounts for all different things. Yeah. And I just grew up with that. I
Yeah,
grew
yeah.
up having an email address.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I'm wondering if
Phone numbers.
wondering if that's the way.
Right, I'll give you another example then. You take out some insurance for your car or your house or whatever, and you've got to get your policy. You've got to get your policy documents. And yes, you could say to them, "Send them to me in the post." But we're moving away from that model. Can you actually get, let's say, Royal, what's it called? Some insurance company, Admiral Insurance. Can you get them to send your policy documents to your WhatsApp account? It just seems like off the wall to me. Or perhaps they will. Perhaps businesses are online with WhatsApp and Facebook messaging and iMessage and whatever else.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. But when it comes to mobile phones, using a mobile phone number, how many times have you changed your mobile phone number in your life? And then that means that if you say, Vodafone has a pretty bad track record of letting you take your number with you when you move from one network to the next. And say they're being particularly sticky about it, and you've got someone who just doesn't want to have to do it, and insists that you can't take it with you, then you're going to have to go and change your security for various different services. That's a scary idea. Whereas an email address, yes, you can change them quite frequently, but you can still have them, and they can just sit there for years and years.
I don't think they're going away. I think that this is a load of claptrap.
Yes.
Yeah. I've just gone, for instance, on like a comparison site for insurance. There's a well-known one that we most probably all know, and it's an email sign-in only. So you need an email account for that.
Right.
So it's I don't think.
Incidentally, Ricky, what's hide my email? How does that work?
So hide my email is an iCloud option. I think it's just a standard feature. But when I go in and sign up to, let's go into this one again, and I'm going to sign up. And what it does, it gives me a little key, and I can then say hide my email. And it will generate a generic email address that has no link to me, no nothing. Yeah. And what it will do, it will send an email to my account that it obviously knows from iCloud, and I can put a tagline in it saying, whenever an email comes in from this person, it is, say, I'm looking at Compare the Meerkat. It would be that one. But they don't get to know my information, because obviously if they have my email address and I've ticked a box somewhere, that means that email address can be shared with everyone.
Oh, okay. So it's basically a disposable email address then?
Yeah, it's a disposable one.
Okay.
And you can have as like I used it for. What did I use it for recently? I think it was Chat GTP. I used it for that.
Right.
Instead of using my one, I just thought I'd put it through to someone else. And I've used it more and more. So when it's like a mainstream thing like my bank or something, I've used my email address. But just like shopping online and other bits, I've used this one instead, because then they don't have.
Sorry, and that's built into Apple Mail, is it?
Yeah, it comes through as Apple Mail. It's built into iCloud. It's an iCloud thing.
Okay.
Feature that sort of. I don't think you have to be a premium iCloud user to use it. I know they have certain features as a premium iCloud Plus option, but I don't think that's built in. But I've used that a lot because that stops sort of spamming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right, okay. That's an interesting idea of a way to do it, but I suppose, it doesn't. It still helps people use email more so than actually gets around using it and away from using it, which is what this article seems to be doing. So we're going to sum this up as the Guardian is talking crap.
Yes.
All right, Chrome Corner, Ted. What's new in Chrome?
The upcoming screen capture feature will make remote instruction even easier, says Chrome Unboxed. And I was playing around with that. I don't see the setting yet, but the setting is coming whereby if you do a by going control what's it, you start to do a screen recording session. The new feature will allow you to include your mouse clicks and where it's going. So if you're instructing someone, good for the education market, I guess, you can then send a video to someone of your screen, live or recorded, and they can see what you're doing with your mouse and blah, 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 blah. The other one was that Google's Material U custom theme colours are coming again on both stories this week. I'm not seeing this, even though I'm on the developer channel with the latest build in Chromebooks. I'm not seeing the Material U stuff either. They're demonstrating some of that in the link to Chrome Unboxed again. And it does look very, very Android 13 and very much like the same kind of design stuff that will be coming. They made it work by using lots of flags, but I think they're in the Canary channel, so it's a bit difficult for the likes of us mere mortals to actually get it going, and they don't recommend you doing it because it's a bit buggy. But anyway, those are my two Chrome Corner stories.
Okay, all right. They're all right, I suppose. Do you remember back whenever Android first came out and we couldn't actually do any form of screenshots at all, and it took a while for that to come in? And now Google have just gone, well, we're going to do absolutely everything with being able to record your screen.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, next up is Harkback, where instead of Ted and myself, and even Ricky doing one, we're going to have a look at something that was put into the MeWe group by Mr. Jeremy Hartham. The Atari Portfolio. This is a fairly fun little, MS-DOS based laptop replacement, or it's a bit like an Ultrabook, way before they were Ultrabooks. It came out around about 1989, which is 33 years ago, and it has a keyboard that is somewhat reminiscent of an old Spectrum ZX81 keyboard, if anything. And it's a clamshell. You close it down, open it up, and you can just type away. Running what was called DipDOS, which is they got it up to version 2.11 that was compatible on this. It had an LCD monochrome screen with a backlight that was 240 by 64 pixels in size, or you could have it running at 40 characters, 40 characters and 8 lines. Which is the same thing, really. It had 256 kilobytes of RAM, I believe, or there were two versions of it. One had 128 kilobytes of RAM, the other had 256. And it was powered by an 80C88, so an 88 processor, which was clocked at 4.9 megahertz. It's a lovely little thing. I think it was most popularized, and I'm going to credit Matt Jones with this, by Terminator 2, where John Connor uses one of them to rip off cash machines, if you remember that. He would go up the ATM vestibule, stick in this, it was a parallel lead, wasn't it, that went in through the credit card slot and clicked into this, and he would whiz around on the keyboard and do hacking stuff and then steal money. Which was quite impressive, because this was quite an expensive device back in the day. It was about $399 for him to buy one, so he would have had to do some hacking before he got enough money to be able to buy this to go and do more hacking. It ran off 3 AA batteries.
Yay!
And it weighed 500 grams, so just over half a kilogram to be chunked around with you. It's a lovely looking device, it really is. Did either of you have it or know of it?
Ricky?
No. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? It looks like it fits either with the Terminator or Back to the Future sort of style device, doesn't it? It just seems that sort of way. But I was just thinking about the battery level is that you've got to make sure you save it instantly, whatever you do.
Yeah, true, yeah.
But the batteries last forever, don't they? That's the thing. This came out around the same time as Scion, and a lot of the people that were talking about in the MeWe group were quoting that. You either went this way or you went the Scion way. And me, along with many others, went the Scion way. So this, I don't particularly remember this. It reminds me a bit of the Jornada. So you moved into the kind of, what was it called? Pocket Windows? No. Pocket something Windows, wasn't it? Where the Jornada ran... Oh, no, it was Microsoft CE. No, I can't remember now.
Oh, yeah,
CE. Anyway.
Compact edition.
Was it? Anyway, it looks a bit like a Jornada. but the screen is much smaller. Because this was much earlier. And if you look in the wiki page, you can see a screenshot of the screen in action, and you can see those. How many lines did you say? 8 lines. 8 lines of kind of blocky text, of dot matrix text almost. I'm not sure if this had any graphic capabilities much at all, but it was just. I don't honestly think I had one, but I remember them kicking about, and obviously you do as well, Gareth.
I do. I had a sort of Amstrad variant of this. They did the NC100 and the NC200. I actually still have over there my display case because I'm quite chuffed with them and they're all working and do quite nicely. And there was still that need to have, computing on the go. And this kind of provided it in a very, very limited way. But at the time, you didn't know how limited it was. This was amazing to have on the go, and you could buy a modem expansion model, buy a module that would fit on there, and be able to do that as well. It ran what can only be really described as Hue cards, so you don't want to get those mixed up with your PCI Express or your Sega Master System 1. But maybe they're slightly different. Someone can correct me on that if they're out, but they look like Hue cards, good old-fashioned Hue cards. But yeah, it's a lovely machine, and I have seen them over the years. I've never really quite investigated them because I haven't quite known what they were called. But seeing it pop up there with the Atari Portfolio was a real sort of flashback. That's right, the buttons, the keys on the keyboard. That was one of the big things about these. They were raised at the top and not the bottom, so they kind of pointed out at you. They were like little triangulars. So whenever you pushed your finger into them, you pressed them really nicely. So it wasn't quite like the Spectrum, but it had a novel keyboard. I remember thinking, I don't know if I like that. But now I think, I do like that.
Yeah. Those keys look really interesting. If I knew that, I'd forgotten all about that. Very, very interesting indeed. But I can't comment much because I didn't have one. And as I say, I was into Scion. What I liked about these devices, though, was that you could put AA batteries into them. I know, as Ricky says, that's got its own problem, but my Scion devices would just last weeks on end. And I mean, there was a risk that you could lose something from the memory, I suppose, from the storage, but they just lasted forever and ever, and you just were careful. Before you replace the batteries, you turn it off and you're away. So, lovely.
Yeah. Atari don't get a lot of praise for some of their computers that they built. Everybody knows their games consoles, and everybody knows the Atari ST, which was a home computer that kind of rivaled the Amiga, was, dare I say it, not quite as good. I'm sure someone out there is now throwing something at this, whatever they're listening to this on. But but they had a whole range of computers that they built over the years, and they were kind of always trying to catch up to Spectrum, Commodore, and Amstrad, and they never quite made it. There was the 800 range and the XLs and things like that, but this was another one that was kind of groundbreaking at the time, but I guess it showed the way, but it didn't catch on that well. Yeah.
Really nice, though. It's a good shout, so thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, cool. All right, bargain basement, gentlemen. Get your bargains. We're going to start with Ted.
Oh,
I don't know if I said your name twice, but I did.
Thank you, yes. It's worth saying twice. This is the Samsung Odyssey G4. 25-inch, 240 hertz, 1 millisecond, IPS, full HD gaming monitor. Hope I said all that right. It's got 2 HDMI ports, display port, and a height adjust. And apparently, it's this. The reason that this is quite special is that it's got low input lag and quick pixel response times, which doesn't really mean that much to me, but it does to gamers. And so this is a gaming bargain because it's been reduced to 199 quid for 243 quid. I don't think I really knew that there was specific gaming monitors out there, Gareth. Something I'd never looked at before. But yeah, do you think this is something interesting?
It certainly sounds it, yes. I don't think I'd go for a 25-inch. I'd rather have something along the lines of maybe 30. I think 32 inches is just getting a wee bit too big. But no, it's a good-looking screen. Ricky, what do you think of it?
Yeah, just having a quick look. So most people that I know when I've been doing stuff prefer 27 inches. Seems to be a go-to one. It's a VA screen, which is good. It's a vertical alignment. So that's what most people look at. I'm just having a look at the response time. Is it... Because there's grey to grey and there's MPRT, which is MPRT is more measured, and most gamers prefer a MPRT measurement, which means that the response time is very, very small. And obviously when we're talking response time is when you press a key or trigger an action on your controller, the response time it happens. With these as well, I just want to say that most of the time to achieve the high level of refresh rate, you will have to use a display port instead of HDMI, because that's one of the top things that a lot of people say to me is, how am I not achieving this? And I said, well, you have to use the display port because it's built into that sort of feature. And then also you use your graphics cards, and your graphics card would normally auto-align, and depending on your PC that you have, would get that best response. It seems okay. Their pixel refreshing system seems to be good anyway from Samsung. I've had one Samsung monitor in the past, but not really much else. An IPS panel, which is good as well. G-Sync compatible. Yeah, I would say pretty good monitor and a very good price, actually. A very good price point.
Yes. It looks a bit beefy as well, sort of thing that would occupy your desk quite nicely. Good call. Good call. Next up is, with me, it's a Crucial P2 SSD. Or P3, sorry. This is the Crucial P3 2TB M.2 PCIe Express NVMe internal SSD. It's one of them again. Most weeks. But it's just wonderful to see these prices drop. Sorry, I swore earlier because Ted made me laugh and I spat water all over my desk. And then it's dribbling on me. Okay. It's not coffee, so it's not going to cause the problems last time. It's water. It's down in price from £162.35p to £109.48p, which is a saving of 33%. That's amazing. I can't believe these prices. And they're good, fast drives. 2 terabytes in storage with the read speed is 3,500 megabytes per second, and it doesn't say the write speed, actually. No, it doesn't. That's bizarre. But I'm sure it's something quite fast too. Oh, no, there it is there. No, it's not. No, never mind.
There's a 4 terabyte one as well, which is also reduced, but not quite by the same amount.
No, it's down from £324 to £238, so it's down 27%, which ain't bad. But no, I'd have that 2 terabyte in my machine if I had space, but I don't, so I won't.
Really nice, really nice.
It's back to you, Ted.
Right, now, I got this Samsung phone in to review, and I thought to myself, do Samsung make headphones? I don't remember seeing headphones, earbuds and all that claptrap, but not headphones. And then I remembered, of course, they did this deal with AKG, and they did this series of headphones out there by AKG with the AKG badge on, but essentially they were kind of a deal with Samsung. Anyway, so I happened to stumble in my research upon this AKG Y500 wireless headphone set, and I noticed that they were 62% off. Now, they might be crap, I've never used them, but they're 49 quid now, down from 130 or 129. And they look really well. I went off and did a look for a review for them as well, and people were actually saying that they look half decent. They've got a 3.5mm audio out, so you can cable them up as well. Noise reduction system in place. Who knows how good that is, but they seem to think it's okay. And lots of bells and whistles, and they look as though they're not over-ear ones. They're kind of sit on the out of your ear kind of ones, so they're a bit smaller, but they look nice and available in gold and black and ordinary black. I like the look of those.
Is it USB-C or micro USB?
It's 2019, so I'm going to have a guess at micro USB.
Oh, is it? That puts the kibosh on it, doesn't it? Yes, it is. I can see the connector. You're absolutely right. Take this one away. Edit it out.
No, but it's still a good-looking headphone. Someone might out there think, ooh, that would suit me down to the ground, because it's rose gold.
Yeah, I wouldn't get it.
You don't often get rose
micro
gold.
SD. Forget a micro USB. Forget that. No.
Fair enough. Next up is, they've recently announced that they're cancelling the Microsoft Surface Duo 3, and I think in response, the Surface Duo 2 has slipped in price somewhat. And there's a little website called Insight.com, and they are currently listing the 256GB version, 5G version, for £637.19.
Nice.
Which seems like a tremendous saving off the top, because I remember them being... actually, they have a different version of it available, which is over £1,000.
Hang on a minute. Oh no, sorry, carry on. I thought they were showing photos of the Surface 1, but it's not, it's the Surface 2. Carry on.
Yes, they tend to do that on listings. They show the...
Yeah, I thought they'd made a mistake there. Carry on, as you were.
Well, I did think that they made a mistake on this price, because they've got all their other Surface Duo 2s for over £1,000. But this one's dropped down to 637, which I think is quite a steal. If you were intrigued to buy one,
that's cool.
This would be a good time.
Incidentally, I'd just like to correct you. They haven't cancelled Duo 3, but they're changing the design so it's not two slates of glass, and they're making a folding device. It still might be called Duo 3.
I don't think it will be.
Yes.
Microsoft like to do that, don't they?
Yes. Right. Extension lead with USB slots. I think that I brought this to the show, or something very similar, a while ago. But I'll do it again because it's been reduced from 30 quid to 17, and it looks really nice. I think that it's a utility device. I've got a feeling you said you might buy one of these before when I did it, because the plugs all face upwards, which can be very, very helpful. And it's got 4 USB-As and a what's that other one on the top there?
USB-C by the looks of it.
USB-C as well.
Yeah.
I missed that one. And the cable looks really nice, braided quality stuff as well. I quite like the look of that, and I thought I'd mention it because it's reduced.
Yeah, I remember putting this in my basket, but I don't seem to remember owning it or actually going through and buying it.
Yeah.
Wonder why. What happened?
Yeah. On the other side of it, there's 6. There's 3 other 3-pin plugs, incidentally.
Incidentally. Yes, sure. That's a very nice looking device.
It is.
I'll put it back in my basket and see if it actually makes it here.
If it makes it through.
Yeah. So my last one is, I was thinking of Ted for those days that he disappears off up the Alps with those saucy French movies that you like to collect.
Yeah.
And you put them on the SanDisk Extreme Pro 4TB portable NVMe SSD. Because it's down in price, yet again, from £857.99 to £499. And there are payment plans available if you fancy them.
That's really nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Lots of storage. Indestructible.
That is just 4 terabytes. And this is the Extreme Pro that you've linked to. My 2 terabyte one is just the Extreme version. So this one has got faster read-write speeds, and it's also got this higher level of protection, which means you can drive over it with a tank and that sort of thing. It really does look impressive, but that's a lot of money, isn't it? Even with 41% off, 500 quid.
Yeah, it's IP55 rated, so it's pretty good in water and pretty good in dust.
I think they're selling it though on the grounds of it being tank drive over resistant.
I don't see that anywhere, but I think we should put it to the test.
Yeah. So my lesser protected one wouldn't survive that, but it survives much else. They're lovely devices though, and they're so dinky. I keep one in my wallet all the time. It just goes with me. It's amazing because I have to quite often move data from my mum and dad's house to where I stay, and that just sits in my wallet. I can just get it out, and it's always with me. It's great.
Impress the ladies with it down the pub. Where you see what I've got in my wallet, little lady. Yeah, no, they are good, and maybe yours could survive a half track as opposed to a full tank.
Yeah, or a tank in mud. Now,
all right.
My last one has got a big caveat, but it's I went looking for a 50-watt wireless charger because my Motorola phone supports 50-watt wireless charging. For love nor money, you can't seem to get the actual one that Motorola make. So you have to kind of go to eBay or something, or go to a Chinese website to import it. So eventually they'll come. So I found this one anyway for people who have got an Oppo device or a OnePlus device. I gather a 50-watt wireless charger using AirVOOC. And it's been reduced from 75 quid to 45 quid. Now, the caveat here is that this Oppo one will only work if you've got the charger that came out of the box and the cable that came out of the box at 50 watts. Otherwise, it drops down to a silly low level. But for someone that wants to make use of this and has bought the Oppo device or the OnePlus device, this is a bit of a steal, frankly, because I think £45 for a 50-watt wireless charger is great.
Is that an option there as well, where you can buy it with the cable, but not the charger?
Oh, is there?
For £5 more.
For £5 more, you can buy
the cable, or the thing plus the cable USB-A to USB Type-C, 1 metre.
Is that a VoIP cable? Oh, yeah, it is. So, for 45 quid, you get a cable as well.
Yeah.
You still need...
Oh, no, for 49 quid.
49 quid, yeah. So, but you still need the brick from the box.
Yeah.
Otherwise it won't work. Well, it will work, but it won't work at 50 watts. Anyway,
the cable's the thing that... You know, mine here, my phone charger is attached to a cradle, and it charges over the cradle. But I've got like a 3-metre cable running all the way down. You don't have that luxury. I would have to, if I was in that position, I have to have my phone way over there, closer to the plug sockets, because you have to use that 1-metre cable that they provide. Yeah. That's a pain.
It is, yeah. And this whole universal USB-C is just not really very universal. I said this when I had the Oppo Find X3 Pro in for review. That was one of my big observations. Is it's all very well saying you've got all this super fast charging, but if you've got to use the kit that comes in the box, you've got to carry that with you all the time as well. Rubbish.
Yes, rubbish. He said. All right, Ricky. Next time you're on, please feel free to put some bargains in there if you happen to find.
I will do. I just found the Oppo 65-watt SuperVOOC charging brick, which is £32 on top.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Or you can get the 30-watt for 23. But obviously, you're going to need that 65-watt one, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Depends which device you've got, I suppose.
Yeah, it very much depends.
Yeah.
So. But no, I will do. I will add some bits in there, definitely.
Mm.
Cool. All right, well, it's been lovely having you on.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll join us again anytime you like, soon. Sooner the better. And other than that, we could just sort of round out. Ricky, where can they find you?
So I managed to change all of my socials. So if you search Ricky's Tech Talk, you'll find all of my socials. So it's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And then I do have a website that needs a bit of an update.
Nice. Okay. And you're on Twitter as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as well. Same, just at Ricky's Tech Talk.
Cool. And Ted, where can they find you?
I'm at tedsalmon.com. As always, links out from there to all of our audio podcasts, all of our MeWe groups. Do join us in the MeWe group. Come and chat to us and let us know what tech you're using. We'll bring highlights of that to the show as and when you let us know about them. If you want to buy me a coffee, you can do that. It's at paypal.me/TedSam. And I thank you very much.
Yes. How wonderful. And we'll talk to you all again next week. Have a lovely week. Enjoy. Oh, no, it's not happening till next week. Samsung. Right, okay. Anticipate Samsung, and we'll talk to you again before then. Take care now.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.